Good morning, everyone. This is WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. I am Wayne, and I am your host for Savannah Lexicon. Glad you are tuned in. If you are tuned in for the first time, I surely appreciate that. And I just want to tell you that Savannah Lexicon is a show dedicated to inform the listener about important social, political, and cultural issues that shape Savannah, as well as about opportunities to experience things in and around this beautiful city that might bring an added measure of grace and joy to your life. My guests usually are folks from the local government, people from social service organizations, cultural organizations, really all kinds of folks who can be informative and enlightening about all sorts of issues that we deal with here in Savannah, good and bad. And sometimes, every once in a while, I have a show just for fun. Today is not such a show, but it hopefully will be one that you will find engaging and important and informative. Before I get to my guest, who is Linda Wilder Bryan, a well-known anti-violence activist, if you want to put it that way. And she has an organization, LB4 and After, named in reference to her. Well, we'll tell you about that in just a minute. But she's here with us, and we'll be discussing some things with her in just a minute. But first off, let me take care of a little business, including the world-famous general disclaimer. The viewpoints expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of WRUU, its license holder, or its staff. Got that? Okay. Good. Then we can plunge forward. So thank you so much for coming in today, Linda. I do appreciate it, and particularly at kind of short notice. Your life changed forever, August 7th, 2015. And tell us why that is for those listeners who may not know.
On August the 7th, 2015, I lost something that was dear and precious to me. My youngest and only son. I have 3 children. Lawrence was the youngest.
Wow.
He was shot, killed in a house where they were gambling. And so I understand that people say that people put themselves at risk when they are in places that are basically illegal.
Yeah.
And so the problem that I have with that is people gamble all the time, and I make no excuse for my son's actions. It is illegal. But for anybody to decide that they can just kill somebody and walk away, it just boggles my mind. And so it's not about the gambling, because it is wrong. We understand that.
Yeah.
But a community that says people are deserving of death lacks real humanity.
Oh, certainly. Certainly.
And so since that day, I said, not this child, not my son, because what the media will do is kill people who get killed twice. The first bullets, I just get full. That was enough right there, right? But for the media to say mean and hateful things and people to come after the fact, not only is it disparaging, it's just horrible, And so what I've tried to do, and once you become public, you open yourself to everything. So I welcome that, because I wanted to be a voice. And so the morning after my son died, me and about 40 of my family members, we went to City Hall and we stood on the steps. I have 18 years of law enforcement and never imagined that I would be on this side.
Right.
On this side.
Right.
So it was really a rude awakening to me, because as a parent, when people say it's the mother's fault, it's the mother's fault. And just let me just qualify that. As a parent, I did everything. I went to PTAs. I took my children to school. And anybody who knows me, extracurricular activity, I knew my children, their friends, So we can't always use that as an excuse. Lawrence was a 23-year-old boy man that was feeling his way through life.
Sure.
And so somebody took his dreams, There are an innumerable amount of people whose life changed, and he was on the verge of change. He understood what I accepted and what I would not accept. And so moving forward, I have done everything possible to bring awareness, to let the community know that the responsibility is a big wheel in this community, and each of us play a part in that wheel. The parents, the church, the community itself, and government. And so we cannot blame one without engaging the other.
Of course.
And so my thing is to bring diversity and have real communications. And we can't move forward because people are just mad at everybody for everything, and we're not listening. We have a public school system that is below par. We all know that.
Yeah.
And so my thing is to start off with children. It's easier to mold children than it is to repair people who are never going to have any kind of redeeming social value. We get that. All through time, we understand that. So what do? We talk about solutions.
Yeah. Well, okay, boy, yeah, there's a lot there.
Yes.
A lot in what you were just saying. And let me just, and we'll talk about various issues and things here. I do want to go ahead just while we're at it, and I hate to belabor the point, but it is certainly worth noting that just a few days ago, this piece of crap who took your son's life was he's serving a federal prison sentence for illegal firearms possession. He was indicted for murder for that slaying. By the way, and boy, I'm not going to call him what I'd like to call him straight out, but I guess piece of crap is close as I can get on air. But and it's also worth noting that his criminal history included felony convictions for theft by receiving stolen property, fleeing and attempting to elude police, obstruction of law enforcement officer by force, receipt or possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and purchase, possession, or manufacture, sale of marijuana. So he was in jail for that already.
Yes. And
the trial came up for murder here concerning your son. And
a true bill.
I'm sorry?
A true bill. It was an indictment. He had already gotten charged.
Right.
And so they came back. The grand jury said they had enough evidence that he was the shooter of my son.
Well, yes. So, and again, obviously you are free to answer or not answer anything you don't want to, but my question is simply, how does that make you feel to have that? Because, all of this time until now, the trial comes up, and how did that make you feel?
I tell you, I really just broke down because it's the beginning of justice from my family. Yeah. It won't bring Lawrence back, but I tell you, I've been in this community all of my life with the exception of going to school for a while.
So you're a native.
I'm a native Savannah, worked law enforcement, was a sergeant at the Sheriff's Department, corrections transitions.
Right.
And the one thing that screams is that I'm not the only one. There's several. There's several,
Yeah.
And not only are they killing young men, they're killing females and children now.
Yeah.
And so for 2 years, Wayne, I have been on Facebook calling people cowards, cold-blooded killers, and I've become sort of a pariah because they said, well, your son, he was involved in illegal activities too. Just one moment. What I want to tell you that my son never hurt or harmed anybody.
Yeah.
What he did to himself.
Well,
and so we're comparing apples and oranges to a career criminal.
Absolutely.
And so it's easy for people to sleep at night. Well, what's the difference between your son and this son?
Oh my goodness.
There are plenty differences. There are plenty differences.
Actually say, I mean, you've really been getting this kind of feedback and this kind of commentary also in the media?
Well, not so much the media, the social media.
The social media. Oh,
and initially the media, because
good Lord.
the media, that's what I said initially. It's easier to say, well, he was involved in gambling. And so that's why I said, okay, we're going to put everything on the table. And you can't use against me what I tell you. And so I came clean. I'm like, yes. And so he's dead. And so what do we do about that? Do we continue to let people die? Because scumbags, like you say, want to rob you, come up in the cloak of darkness with masks on and shoot rather than work. And so what kind of humanity, what does that say about a community?
Yeah.
What does that say a community? So getting back to him. And so now we have a monster son. That's what I call him, a monster son, because he's somebody's son. And I understand that. And while she may be in pain, she can see her son. When I visit my son, I have to go to Hillcrest Abbey. And so not only has he influenced somebody else, he's taken somebody's daughter along with him because he involved her in this crime.
Yep.
And so too many of our young women are pairing up with these, I mean, I don't have a word to explain it. And that's because the village has failed. And I tell people all the time, if the village elders do not teach our children, the village idiots will.
Well, yeah.
And so,
that's absolutely true. Yeah. Because they're going to pick stuff up.
Yeah, they're going to pick stuff
up. From somebody.
Somebody.
And if it's not the right somebody's, then it's going to be
the village idiots.
The village idiots.
Yes.
Well, that's not a bad way to put it.
No, and it's the truth.
It is the truth.
It is the truth.
So you're talking about there was a young lady, Tiffany LaShawn Chisholm, 26-year-old girlfriend, and why anybody would be
put their lives
associated with some piece of crap like this is beyond me in the first place. But at any rate, she was caught up in the whole thing, and she was tampering with evidence by concealing a firearm herself.
So we want her to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anybody involved with violence is just, I lose, a sense of leniency with that. I can have some sense of leniency and I don't know, empathy or whatever for some sorts of crimes. But when it comes to violence, no, you have crossed the line. There is no level of decency when it comes to that. And let me just say myself, I mean, I'm horrified to hear that just because he was involved in gambling, that anybody would suggest that makes this sort of okay in any way whatsoever, or that somehow means that he deserved it or something. That's monstrous.
Yes, it is.
And completely just wrong. There are so many of moms out there, and fathers and brothers and cousins and uncles and everybody anymore. I know that you, of course, know Brenda Johnson Curtis,
yes,
too.
I do.
And she is, both of y'all are involved also. You've got your own organization, LB4 and After. But you're both involved, I think, with Moms, which is Mothers of Murdered Sons of Savannah. And she, too, lost someone in somewhat the same fashion. Her son, Ricardo James Morris.
Yes.
And he was killed as well. I don't think an arrest had been made.
No, it's a cold
in that
case.
Yeah. So, Just one more example, and good Lord, there are so many. I was this morning, and in recent weeks, I have been keeping newspaper, articles of just one crime after other. Now, some of them are arrests and trials, and so that's the good stuff. But it's just, it's just
Every
sickening
day.
to see it, just this barrage constantly, and it just never seems to get any better, or at least not significantly better. And it's a tough issue, and unfortunately, as you say, you have to go deeper and earlier. I mean, it's involved with poverty issues. It's involved with parenting. It's involved with the school system, which is, look, let's face it, horrible.
Yes. Here
in Chatham County, and again, never seems to get better. And all of this stuff. So it can be frustrating, I know, for you and me and everybody else. I mean, because you look at so many different factors, and what do you do? But to really get to the root causes and the root problems, but you do what you're doing, which is you just keep chipping away at it. You just keep speaking out. Mm-hmm. And you just keep getting involved in positive ways, however you can, whatever that may be. Tell us about some of the things that LB before and after. What kinds of things is the organization doing? What are you doing? Some of the things you guys are involved with and whatnot.
Well, initially, I think Lawrence got killed in August of 2015, and they had an election that was coming up. And for 2 months, I campaigned and for a position, for a post at large. And in those 2 months,
that's right,
got 11,000 votes for an incumbent who got 13. That's a telling story.
That's impressive, yes.
That's a telling story, because I was everywhere. I knocked on doors because I wanted to be a voice, because I realized that mothers did not have a voice in this community. We had ministers who knew that our children were dying, and they endorsed people who were not being the servants that they said they would be. And so that was twofold, In the black community, the church is still strong in our community. Yeah. And so when we have ministers, and I became a pariah because I said, enough of this, we got to vote for people with a reference, not about color. And so when they get in their pulpits and they let people come into those pulpits and they say, we're doing a great job, and we look around and say, you're not doing a great job. Yeah. There's too much disparity in our community and enough. And so then we had a police department that did not even have a cold case. And so I was one of the driving force. We have a cold case now because I said, you cannot continue to say that you care about lives and you're not even trying to play like you care, and you don't have as much crime as there is, as many cold cases as there are. You don't have a cold case. And so when somebody gives you information, and it's hard enough trying to pull relevant information that can solve these cases, who do they give the information to? You don't have any infrastructure to say, I'm calling on this case. And so the little things that I've been able to do have been catalysts for change. We talk about change, and it's been fueled by loss. You get involved when you lose something. Sure. And all that I pushed Sin and Submit all day until we got CNN here. And they did a story, Southern Charms, Deadly Streets. And people were actually mad at me. I mean, people actually said, how could she air our dirty laundry nationwide? And so I became, the realization to me was, it wasn't so much that they didn't want to do something. It had to really do with tourism. That's the bottom line. And I say the gang color now is green. It's about money. Right, it's about money. So when they say they don't have the solutions, Wayne, we all know that's not true. The same thing that makes one community thriving, it will make another community. And so our tax dollars are not being used equitably. And all I say is people don't really want handouts. I mean, we need to get our labor force rating with training, and it needs to start It needs to start early.
Yeah.
You know, a labor market that is not just conducive to putting people in the labor force for hotels and motels.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of people who are underemployed. Now, I'm not making excuses for people, but I'm tired of people saying that you have people who are lazy when they're working 2 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
They're working 2 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we say it's the parents' fault. But you can't be 2 places at one time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you have a mother who's a single parent, and that's usually how it is in the black community, sad to say.
Yeah.
Right. And so a mother makes a choice. And in the state of Georgia, a 14-year-old can stay home while the mother is working. So you have a 14-year-old who is not getting the supervision that she needs.
Yeah.
And so while the mother's doing these jobs, she becomes engrossed in negative stuff. So sometimes she becomes pregnant, and so the cycle begins. The cycle begins. And so I'm alarmed that people say, and I'm all over the place. I am. Even with my way of thinking, because I'm thinking like the people in our community think. We have to think like that, right? Do I want to be of it? No, but I'm in it up to my head. And the stories, when people say they know better, they don't even know that they don't know.
Mm.
And so how do you tell somebody, and how do you say that they know when you have a 14-year-old who's a parent now, who's a mother, and she doesn't have the skills to do what she needs to do?
Yep.
And so I say this because the solutions that we used to have in the community, the after school programs, you know, we've taken that. That was some type of supervision while the mother worked.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to go back to old school. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm just trying to say that there are solutions. You know what the solutions are. You gave money, $32 million for a parking garage.
Yeah.
You cut services, emergency services from DFACs, right? You defunded programs, after school programs. And so when we say the parents are at fault, we got to blame government too. We got to blame the churches who have become...
There's blame to go around.
It's blame
for sure.
to go around.
Yeah.
But we have to... I understand that. We got to stop talking about the blame. And I understand that because we can blame all day long. I can sit here for 2 hours and talk about blame.
Yeah.
But we're trying to walk our talk. And so the Band-Aids that people say that we're doing, feeding the homeless, that's not a Band-Aid. People are hungry. When we do events with Save Our Youth Savannah and PAC, those people do not stand in line if they're not hungry. So what we try to do, I'm just not feeding them to feed them. I'm feeding their stomachs and I'm feeding their brains to tell them that there are options.
Yeah.
And the best option you have right now is education. It's education. You know, they have all kind of tags where you can get anywhere from where, you can go any place from where you are. And so that's what we do. We build on self-esteem. We build on self-esteem.
Good.
The gangs here, there have always been gangs, but now they're more prevalent.
Yeah.
They're more dangerous
Certainly
because they're
are.
taking our children. They're taking our children, and they're making monsters out of them. They're making animals out of them.
And as you're talking about these things being done, it's through for the large part LB4 and
Yes.
after
We have
the
several programs. Well,
the group. Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the positive stuff.
I'm sorry.
I want to talk about some of the positive things that we are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a Belts for Boys program, and you know, one of our tags is "Raise your pants, raise your chance." The first impression is a lasting impression. I am so tired of walking around and seeing people's butts.
Yeah.
You know,
Me too. I'll second that.
it is, and you know, I'm tired of seeing people walk like penguins.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you see it, white kids, black kids, Hispanic kids. And so we got to go back to grooming. And, you know, a long time ago when we were growing up, people said that, you know, our parents and neighbors and teachers always told us, you don't have to be poor and let people know it, but you do have to be clean. And whatever you have, you take pride in that. These big T-shirts and pants, you know, people say that's a gang kind of insignia, right? I don't believe that to be true. You can say people who wear torn off jeans are in a gang. It's a style for them. And the style is there because nobody's told them that you don't have to look like everybody.
Yeah.
But how many people do you know, people who have money, are wearing these jeans with holes in it?
Yeah.
So, you know, when people say associate clothes with something, it's easy to describe people. But what we try to do is to get your first description, your appearance, to be neat, well-groomed, and pulled together.
Yeah. And you know, my limited sense of this is that really when people do that after sort of not living like that for some period of time, they feel better.
Yes, they do.
They feel better about themselves, and they just kind of perk up, and you know, I mean, it's just kind of a natural phenomenon, it seems.
Exactly.
So that's a very interesting and probably more effective than one might imagine way to start.
Yeah, it goes lower than that. It goes lower than that. It's like you said, I work in an environment where we do health and safety. You know, that's my job, my livelihood. And we go to root causes, and you said that initially. So we got to go to the root causes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we understand that it's parenting. But we can't blame children who don't have good parents. And that's where the school comes in.
Yeah, got to have some school scenario for sure.
Yeah, and so, we know there's sorry parents, there's worthless parents, there's parents who just don't care. But what do? We lose children because of that?
Yeah.
We got to do, all of us have to do better. So we do Chess No Mess. That's another program.
What is it?
Chess No Mess. My son was an avid chess player. He won big trophies and awards.
Because,
Yeah. And so we get children to think and have conversations. And that's what's going to change when we redirect their thought patterns. Yeah. Instead of blaming them, we want to embrace them. Now, it's easy to work with kids who already get it.
Yeah.
We have to find ways to engage kids who don't. Yeah. And there lies our problem. Yeah. And so anything and everything that LB4 could do, that's what we tried to do. And there's nothing wrong with being Band-Aids. People minimize Band-Aids, but Band-Aids stop the bleeding.
Yeah. I mean, you got to do what you can do. Yeah. You know, it's all
relative.
It's all relative. It's all helpful. You know, a Band-Aid is, like you say, a good thing, for at least. I mean, it may be a limited way, but enough Band-Aids.
So, amazingly enough, I've been one of the stronger proponents in this community that talked against government, you know, and what they could do. Yeah. But I found out that I got on the board of the Arts and Cultural Commission here in Savannah. And I think that's just awesome because we want to bring arts into the schools, you know. We want to show children another way, you know. I'm so tired of the rap and the negative portrayal of females in our community, and that's why that young lady got involved. She thought it was easy and it was nice to be with...
and it was cool.
It was cool.
No,
it's not cool.
No, it ain't cool.
Yeah,
it
so
ain't
we
cool in the slightest.
That, right, yeah. Her coolness ultimately will probably lead to a life of incarceration. Yeah. Now, I've been told, you know, maybe this is her first chance. Well, this is a chance that mattered most to me. Yeah. I don't care about it being her first chance. She's involved with the worst thing that you could possibly, one of the deadly sins, the homicide.
Oh,
how do you sleep at night for 2 years?
Can't get any worse than that.
Yeah, and so I don't care. And, you know, just like I said, I don't care. Yeah. I want a life for a life. And when Lawrence can get out of his grave, he can get out of prison.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't think that's going to happen. And so we have to call it what it is. The ones that we can save, we're going to do everything in our power to save. But the ones who I say, who the community knows that they've killed somebody, we want them off the street forever and ever.
You got that right. I agree with that. Okay. We are going to we're at about the halfway mark here, and we're going to need to take a short breather. We are having a good discussion with Linda Wilder Bryan, who works in various ways, all sorts of ways, to combat violence and the underlying conditions that help it fester. But we're going to take a short break, and we won't be going long. I will tell you before we break that this is WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. So hang with us just a minute, and we will be back with Savannah Lexicon and more conversation with Linda Wilder Bryan.
This portion of WRUU-LP Savannah Soundings programming is made possible by a grant from Sentient Bean, offering fair trade coffee, vegan and vegetarian food, and breakfast all day. Located at 13 East Park Avenue, across the street from the tennis courts at Forsyth Park. Our menu and special events listings can be found at sentientbean.com.
And I'm back here with Savannah Lexicon. This is Wayne, and I want to tell you, I want to make you sure that you understand. WRUU Savannah Soundings Community Radio is having its second annual online auction. Yes, it's going as of yesterday. The auction will run from July 17th to July 30th, with proceeds going to Savannah Soundings Community Radio as an investment in the diversity of our community voice and music. And that's what WRUU is about. The wide range of auction items from Savannah businesses will guarantee to delight and surprise. To join the online bidding fun, follow the link found at WRUU.org. All right, and talking, if you just happen to be tuning in, welcome in to Savannah Lexicon here on WRUU. Talking with Linda Wilder Bryan, an activist and someone not afraid to speak out in the community about various issues that we need to address, and much of it revolving around violence and the underlying causes of that. Her organization, L Before and After, is one organization that gets involved in various aspects of social need and the issue of violence. And, I want to touch on this. You brought it up because it is a very important issue, and that is the prevalence of single-parent homes within the black community. And it's one of those things that can be such a delicate issue to address, but we need to think about that and talk about it and address it, because that is part of the problem at a fundamental level. So what do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that there are also white single mothers, but right now I want to speak about black single mothers in our community.
Yep.
Because this is where the problem lies right now, and this is what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about all mothers, and so the basic core of the family has been divided.
Yep.
And it's been divided for more than 50 or 40 years. We started out with Martin Luther King, where families were strong.
Right.
And so now we come back to the same thing, fighting for poverty, fighting for jobs, medical assistance, the same thing 60 years ago. So we talk about struggling mothers. And I know we can't help children unless we help these overwhelmed mothers. And so I tried to create a program where we found 100 strong mothers in a community to pair with 100 mothers who are struggling, trying to be better mothers. Because I found out if we could invest in mothers, we can impact children. We can't work one without the other.
Absolutely.
So we've got to work with these mothers.
Yeah.
And so we had, when we got together at a church with several people in the community who were psychotherapists and doctors and attorneys and educators and people who worked at DFACS, the most amazing thing that I said, imagine if we could get 100 mothers who had 2 or 3 kids. We would be impacting thousands of children.
Yeah.
And so you have people, Wayne, who say single mothers is an epidemic. Well, the President of the United States was nurtured and mentored by a single mother, President Obama.
Yeah.
And so we can't use that as an excuse, but we have to help these mothers, and they need help because they can't go to PTAs if they're working, right? And so for me to know that all they need is a little bit of help, just a little bit. You got parents who don't know how to be parents. You got grandmothers who are 30 years old.
Yeah, wow.
And so the cycle continues because they don't even know that they don't know.
But and,
So
and
training.
I agree, and I'm again touching on delicate territory for sure. But you and I were talking, during the break, and these things need to be talked about and discussed and addressed, by
So we can
everybody
move
and anybody
forward.
who's
Yeah.
part of a community.
Yeah.
And we even take it a step back. Why so many one parent, white, black, whoever it is? Why are there so many? Because that's the first step.
Well,
But,
I can tell you one thing, that we have a significant amount of black men who are incarcerated.
yeah,
We have
that's
men who
that
are
would
homosexuals.
play a part.
We have men who marry white women, and I'm not saying anything against that, but that narrows a lot down of who you actually have less to be in households with these children,
Yeah.
And so I don't want people to be in a relationship with somebody, white or black, that's bringing nothing to the table. And so we have a lot of these women who who have men in the household who are bringing nothing to the table. Nothing, absolutely nothing to the table. And that's the truth. And so I would rather for a parent to be single and not bring people in your household. You're sleeping with the enemy. We have so many cases of incest, you know, and so there's so many.
Well, it's another
it's
criminal
another issue.
I have
I'm just
absolutely
saying,
no sympathy for.
But no, not at all.
Yeah.
The scourge of the earth. But what I'm saying is that devalues a child's psyche.
Sure.
You know, and so that cycle cannot be broken. And so you have another child who ultimately wants to have another child for love. And so
Lord.
we got to start early. People are against sex education in the school. Well, that's another topic that people don't want to talk about. But once the horse is already out of the gate, what do you do?
Yeah.
We can't keep having, if you can't take care of one child as a single parent, you cannot take care of 3 or 4. And so
for sure.
there are just so many issues, you know. We are not a problem people. We are just people with a lot of problems. And nobody wants to talk. So the message that you hear from Linda Wilder Bryan does not change. The white people get the same message from Linda. The brown people get the same. And my people especially. I'm really hard on my people because I'm tired of them not wanting to accept our faults. Our faults. You know, and it doesn't matter what color you are. You have to own up what is so that you can move away from what isn't. And so when we are brutally honest with ourselves, when we say, I get that, I own that, what do? So we have to have programs to teach people who don't know. We cannot get around helping and doing better in this community if we want to see real change. And real chances for change when we have these hard conversations with white people and black people, and we all sit to the table and we take something from the table that we could not even imagine exists, but it does exist. And poverty and crime are married to each other. We got to separate that. We've got to train people, give them skills so the quality of their life changes. We can't move beyond that. So these single mothers, we go back to the single mothers who have created an environment where their children are feeling worthless. Can you imagine that? That children will rather fight and stay at home and not go to school because their clothes aren't clean or they don't have on Jordans. And I tell people that all the time. Mothers will stand in line to buy tennises that their kids will not be able to wear in 2 or 3 months.
Right.
But they won't go to meetings. You know,
know.
They won't go to community town hall meetings to tell those people who say they are servants. And so when I go to these meetings, I don't go to bash white people. I go to see what kind of juice that they're using. So that we can get the same kind of things that go on in our community. Well, I can tell you right now, if you're not there, then you're not going to be represented. And I don't care what people have in their communities. Kudos to them. All I'm saying that the disparity is there, and we should not in Savannah. This is a beautiful city. Everybody should be able to enjoy it. We should not go 2 blocks over and see blight and boarded up buildings. You know, that's just, I don't see how people could sleep at night. And so what I say to one group, I say to the other. We all got to do better. We got to stop blaming people, and we got to put money in the community so that our children see faces of people that look like them, so that they are encouraged so that they can do better. To not see that means that it cannot exist, and it does not exist. And so I have conversations and I tell children, you got to vote. You got to vote. You got to vote. And you got to hold people accountable and say, what about us? And so it's okay to put dollars in a community that's thriving, but it's harder. It's harder. It's more work, root causes, when you don't put anything in that you don't have a vested interest in your entire city. That's doable. And so we got to put people in places to say that's fair, it's equitable, it's transparent, and it's inclusion. And so when people are mad about me saying that, you know, you say we can't curse, but I really don't care. I don't give what it used to say. I don't care. You know, if you uncomfortable. I've lost a son. You know, I should be mad. People have said that I was a mad, angry black woman. I had a reason and a right, and I'll take that as a badge of courage. But guess what I did?
Yeah.
A week after my son got killed, I went into the community and said, what can I do? Because I don't want another mother to go through this horrific experience. I've been called fake, and it doesn't matter to me because I put myself out there, Wayne, to say that I want better and I want to make a difference. So I can take it and I let it roll off my back. But when I want to, anybody who knows me, I go on Facebook and I go off 38 hot because I want people to know that it's easy to blame people.
Yeah.
It's easy to say that's what a person deserves. It's not easy to work. And you cannot stay on Facebook and push like. That's not your civic duty. You got to get out there, you got to do something, and you got to make a difference in our corner of the world.
Yeah.
So on August the 6th in Forsyth Park, this will be the second time. We've done this. We do a celebration of life because I said evil can't win. And what we do it for love and living sons. There's nothing else that I could do for my son because he knew church, he knew vacation, he knew me eating meals at the same time. He knew what family meant. His DNA pool is from the same father, the same mother. We took our children to church.
Right.
We did things. So, when people say, what about the parents? I knew that I was a good mother. And I did everything. And so we can't blame mothers all the time. No. Children make choices. And when we educate them and we tell them, and they go out in the world, our prayer is that they make good choices. And when they don't, they should have an opportunity to rectify anything that they've done. But when you kill somebody, you take away. My son had dreams. He had hopes. He had desires. He had a son. We had a legacy. He has a son that's name is Lawrence Bryan the fifth. And so everything that I do is for his legacy.
And how old is he?
He is 3 years old.
Oh, okay.
But I can tell you my son took him to all of his doctor's appointments.
Yeah.
He taught him all the things that he knew in his life because he knew he wanted to be a good father. Yeah. And so that's the kind of pictures that I painted. I'm like, here's a son, who's in the doctor's office. Here's a son with communion clothes on who took his first communions. And so I wanted to say, yeah. And so people say, all of these people get killed, their sons get killed, and they say, he was a good son. So if he's a good son, why did he die? Because, just crazy stuff. But again, I say, I had a good son, and I'm very proud of Lawrence Bryan IV. And it's because of him and how I taught him to be a giver, him and his sisters. That's why I give, and I'm going to keep giving until my last gasp, until our last breath. Because that's my commitment to a community that I want to see flourish and grow. And Wayne, we can't have those conversations unless diversity is involved. And that we sit to the table and we're not the only people who are getting ate. And right now, my community is getting ate. There are things that are happening in this community that they say are great. Great things are happening. And great things are happening in Savannah, just not for everybody. Yeah. And so when we say great things, we want that to encompass the entire community. And for people not to be mad that people want better and they want their quality of life to be the same quality of life that their tax dollars is getting. Nobody should be mad about that, Wayne. Nobody should be mad about people, single mothers, wanting a come up.
Yes. All right. Well said. All right. We're going to have to leave it there, I think. Lord knows we could carry on for another hours and hours probably, but you have certainly brought up some interesting perspectives, and I'm personally, at least, will speak for myself. I'm very happy to have you in the community and somebody as involved in caring as you. I'm sorry that what happened is, you were involved in the community in a positive way before that,
yes,
but I'm sorry that had to kind of kick it in high gear as far as the reasons behind that. But at any rate, the organization LB4 and After, is there a website or anything or not?
Chelsea Beck, she's a Mothers from Voices.
Okay.
We're working with a whole bunch of mothers. Mothers Demanding Action with and Alan Westbrook and
I-
Lindsay Donovan
Yeah.
for better gun control, right?
Yeah, right.
But the website will be up in a couple of days, but I do want to let people know that on the first Sunday in August, we'll be at Forsyth Park
Okay.
with school supplies and haircuts and personal care items for not only the children in need, but for the homeless. And so
Okay.
I'm all over the place, and people have called
Yeah.
me a garden variety social activist. And until I get it right, we just going to start picking weeds out this garden.
Well,
You cannot see one thing and not be
Yeah,
involved in the other.
There's plenty of
Yes.
work to be done
Yeah, and I
by all
apologize
of
for
us.
being all over, and that's just where
No,
my head
that's
is
fine.
right now.
That's absolutely
Yeah.
fine. No need to apologize
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. So thank you for this opportunity.
Certainly my pleasure, and maybe we can do it again sometime. All right, listeners, we're going to break away for the final segment. Don't go anywhere. I've got a few little announcements and stuff to talk about, as I normally do here in the last part of the show. So hang on with us. Brief little interlude, and we'll be back. And thank you so much again for coming in.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay, I'm back. It's Wayne. We've got just a little time before the top of the hour, which, by the way, is going to bring to us a very good show, Background Briefing with Ian Masters, who looks at national politics on the political level for the most part, and quite good show. And then following at 10 o'clock is Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. So a heck of a back-to-back combo after Savannah Lexicon. So much. I had so much here to try to talk about today after talking with my guest, Linda Wilder Bryan, and there's no way that I'm going to get to all of this at all. Let me do this for one thing. I'll see what I can get into. I did notice, and I hope many of you did, that this past Sunday there was a wonderful letter to the editor in the Savannah Morning News from Scott Waldrop's mother. And, of course, Scott, the young man, one of the young men that was killed here July 4th, horrible mess. And I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. I'm sure it's online, and maybe you saw it in the paper. But I'm just going to read little bits of it. And she starts out with simply, "Thank you, Savannah." She quoting now from this letter from Scott's mom, Terry Waldrop, out of Morrisville, North Carolina. "There are no words to express the love and generosity shown to me, my family, and my extended family. The selfishness, compassion, and support continue to be overwhelming and humbling. It will never be forgotten." She says that it's my hope that on the other side of this tragedy, Savannah can begin to invest in each other as much as Scott invested himself in it. Regardless of race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, or social status, we are all human beings, and we need to remember to treat each other as such. I implore Savannah to take actionable measures to reduce gang violence and to promote social change through education and improved community involvement. She ends by saying Scott would be so proud to be the catalyst for positive change for his Savannah family. It's a shame we ever have to read a letter like that, actually, but that was quite a obviously heartfelt and thoughtful response. I want to mention also Crime Stoppers, 912-234-2020. It is completely anonymous. People, be involved. If you know something's going on, if you are aware of criminals, if you're aware of gang members doing crimes, Crime Stoppers, 912-234-2020. Completely anonymous. No recording. No tracing. Completely anonymous. We need to start pointing our fingers at these pieces of crap punks out here who are robbing and killing people. It's sickening, and we got to do whatever we can to stop it. And of course, again, to get to the root causes, as we've been talking about here during this show with Linda Wilder Bryan, it's a multifaceted. We got to get to the roots of it. But whatever it is, we got to do what we can do. And as we work on the roots and the underlying cause, well, hey, we got to also work on the law enforcement cause and the community involvement cause on this thing, and work together to try and do what we can to the best of our ability. A few community activities going on and whatnot that I want to make you aware of. July 19th, tomorrow, free Microsoft Word class, the African American Health Information and Resource Center, 1910 Abercorn Street, free computer class. If you don't know computer these days, you're just lost. You got to know computer. Free Microsoft Word class, 912-447-6605. Also coming up, day after tomorrow, Savannah City Council meeting, 2 p.m., Council Chambers, second floor of City Hall. Number for information, 912, of course, 651-6410, 651-6410. Go and see what goes on. Go and see what activities, what the City Council is up to. Become involved. Also on the 21st, Walk for Change with Boys and Girls Clubs. And the Boys and Girls Clubs are a wonderful community asset. The Frank Callan Boys and Girls Club, 510 East Charlton Street, is going to have Walk for Change while it celebrates 100 years of service. That's remarkable. From 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., July 21st. And they hope to bring awareness to gun and gang violence in Savannah during this walk, as well as celebrating their own existence and and the things that they've brought to the community here for 100 years. Okay, folks, I think I'm going to have to leave it at that. I hope you will join in with me on Thursday from 7 to 8 for Savannah Rising, Savannah Lexicon, 8 to 9. And my guest next week is going to be Steve Willis, President, Board of Directors, Center for Sustainable Coast. So tune in for that and hang tight as we go into background briefing. It's going to be a very good show. Always is, so I can't imagine why it would be any different today. And go out and make it a very